Here.
Will Wright,
Here, sorry.
Keith Claiborne.
Here. Taking off this long lift yet? Okay.
Yes. Tonight, 2026 city council meeting, these are the 6A was a rezoning from agriculture to E1 suburban estate residential at 4. A application for a rezoning from CC2 to RF2 for 303 Neomi Lane was approved. 50. 6E was a 2040 future land use amendment from mixed use residential commercial to industrial for 1800 Northeast 16th Street. That was approved 5-0. 6F was a rezoning, same location from IR restricted light manufacturing warehousing district to IH2 industry district. 6H 2040 future land use map amendment from mixed use residential commercial to industrial for 1840 Northeast 16th, approved by council with a vote 5-0. 6I rezoning from IR restricted light manufacturing and warehousing district to IH2 heavy industry district. Same address at 16th Street. 6A was a 2040 future land use map amendment from suburban residential to urban residential for 1404 Marty Lane. 0. And a recommending same property from a urban estate residential for 1404 Marty Lane, approved 5-0.
The only opportunity to speak during the meeting.
These are items that are not on the agenda.
Thank you.
So, the address?
So I think it's 1700.
Same address, two different names.
It's 2 different days.
Oh,
It's actually the Kennedy is Same.
I didn't know there were lots down. Next to that is big. Possible action on town center plan.
Commissioners. My name is Sean McGraw, CEC, Civil Engineering Consultant. So you should be familiar with Town Center Plaza. We came forward, and this body has approved the final plat drawings with those. We've since bid that project, and we're kind of going through an exercise of value engineering to meet the city's current budget. This is one of the recommendations we brought forward to the city to try to reduce the cost. So that is to allow for the storm sewer to be modified from what the original plan was, which complies with the city code, reinforced concrete pipe, which everyone should be familiar with, to a newer product that is this polypropylene pipe. So be specific, people get confused on this, so I just want to be very specific on this. People are very familiar with high density polyethylene pipe, HDPE. That's kind of the more typical plastic pipe, and people see that with sanitary sewers. And this, that's not what this is, nor will we allow that as an acceptable substitution during the submittal process for this project. It is specifically this polypropylene pipe, which has been vetted certainly in the transportation community and approved by the DOT, the OTA, and a list of other municipalities throughout the state. It's gone through a bunch of different testing and loading, and it gets a lot of support also from the backfill process. And so we're being very specific as to what the backfill requirements are, and we're going to use the ODOT specification to require what they call Class B backfill, which is basically a rock backfill throughout the pipe. And so it's going to serve two functions. It's going to perform exactly like the RTP. We provided you with a memo on some of the benefits. Some of that's going to be extended life of the RTP. Most of that's going to be from joint performance. That's normally where RTP fails the quickest at the joints. So you'll see sinkholes, things like that. This is going to be an upgrade where it's going to be watertight joints. It comes in much longer sections, so there's fewer joints. It's lighter. It's going to be easier to mobilize to the job site, easier to install, and that's a lot where the cost savings, cost benefit comes from. The material itself is cost kind of comparable to RCP, but the workmanship, the labor, the mobilizing it to the site, trucking, that's where a lot of the cost benefit savings. So we anticipate about a 15% savings in the storm sewer infrastructure than what we would see on what we've already bid. That is kind of my overview for the product, and certainly I'll stand for any questions.
Size pipe is this?
It's
Can't see from that drawing what size pipe is.
it's a mix of sizes. So we have 18-inch minimum, so that still stays with the city code. We are not changing any pipe sizes from what was originally designed.
So what's the wall?
The SDR, depending on the pipe, so we do have everything from 18 inches all the way up to 36. I don't. It is, so it's a corrugated product.
Oh, this is ADS pipe.
Yes. Well, we're not sole sourcing ADS, but
That's very common.
they would be
Single wall or dual?
as built.
Stuff.
We brought forward ordinance. On page that four pages.
Turn down.
Just, we were amending the ordinance and the ordinance amendment did not pass.
Go in court meeting.
First page here.
This is a double wall product.
What it was?
Yeah.
Recent, I did that. I do believe, and I'll follow up. I believe height as a single one,
ADS pipe does.
but it's the other height. It is the other.
CPE. Yes. Oh, thank you.
It would not be. Um, maybe potentially at the drives, we're using like a in treatment. Most of the time, we're outletting with like a precast concrete head section. Pipe should really be minimum 2 foot cover.
It's plastic, so it's exposed to sunlight, rays. So make sure that structure into
to them.
You want to bring it.
But for this item, we
We do all. The best way is to do it 1, 2, 3, not 3. Less than timelines involved.
it's
I'm
major
sure.
timeline for the city up there. All the water, sewer, waiting. Because.
But if we deny it, they can approve it.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And that recommend that they amend the ordinance and bring it back for you. Look at all. What they got. Sample.
The big barrier. So
It is proposed as concrete pavement.
cross section seal. That's single sustained cross section.
Only for the side drains that are under the 2 drive connections along mains. That's the spots where we outlet like into the detention pond. We have that full precast concrete. So we're just on the end of the pipe type of better that dimension. It's got
Second and first paving and drainage.
Thank
And item 9 and 10 together, these are two ordinance amendments to chapter 50 and chapter 92. Chapter 50, point, 10 ditching permit, and chapter 9305 pavement cutting. Did is we developed an application for ditching, trenching, cutting, or boring. As it's stated in the ordinance now, it goes to an application. We actually gave that application a name and established a fee. So there wasn't a fee assigned in the ordinance. It just said established by city council. So what we did is we clarified the language to the state public works and street department superintendents, and then established the fees for these sections, which is $100 for a utility ditching and or trenching permit, $200 for boring, plus a $50 inspection fee, and an additional $20 inspection fee per bore. The fees are for staff time, process the application, go over the work submitted, making sure that they had the proper calling with OP 811, that they're ready to, those departments have to go out and check, make sure everything is flagged correctly, make sure that what they have submitted for their ditching, trenching, cutting, or boring is sufficient, and do those inspections. So basically, the both ordinance amendments are to clarify that language and then establish the fee. There's never a fee assigned. The fees are to cover staff time to process these applications. Application. Most of them, I'll just give you an example. Cox came in. So that time we didn't have a fee established. So we processed the application. That's the smallest one. It was for like 50 linear feet of fiber, and then the utility box, and making sure that they have the correct easements for that, and a utility easement, making sure that the work that they're doing is what they submitted.
I want
So cutting City Street.
no, I see streets.
Okay,
This
so
is
this is only pertaining to anything that we've done in the public right, not on private property.
Okay.
So if you wanted to, say you came in and you wanted, well, if you put a pool in, you're gonna get a permit. And so
no, I'm just trying to.
yeah, if you're adding different lateral lines on your property, that's all right. And on private streets too, you would have to. Cox came in and it was in, they're private. They still would have to, if they are cutting a city road, whether it's private or public, they would still have to come in.
Yeah.
And Cox come in to Windermere, and they were all, like half-inch boards, and but they had like 30 of them. And so we had to take in their application, work with them, and that's when we decided to really get the fee assigned to staff. A lot, probably going to see more.
No. Right.
It beats it, well, it beats it.
Let's do clarification on that.
That's correct. The ordinance, I think you can take out place, area, or building.
Yeah, I was looking for it earlier.
Place, area, or building. Place, area, or building. And then to limit it to any public easement or right of way. No, it just is modified. This is the modified ordinance that's in your packet. You took what was there and we added to it, clarified, we didn't miss that. I mean, we're all in there. Public Works and Streets Department to clarify that it was street, water department, utility department. And then also added the OP 811. Flag department prior to the change work. We added that. with this was from the city manager and the streets department, superintendent John Canary and Public Works Jim Miller. I worked with them developing this ordinance for them. Something that we discussed. I said, make it be a percentage of the work that they're doing, because in this, because it says the same thing under 5010 3, surety bond or cash deposit is suitable to. So I think that they left it that way, and we decided to leave it that way because, like you said, it could be a very small project, it could be a very large project. And at that time, we would say, okay, if you're that way, it gives us some leeway to decide what the bond should be, or what the surety should be, instead of putting an amount on.
But, reaching for this. Sidewalk section. Any Like B and C pretty much say a lot of the same thing. Say what's different?
Two different chapters.
No, 9305, B and C. Like, that's a lot of the same stuff. Specific about the purpose. Well, what is it focusing on that's different? I see cities, alleys, sidewalks, public ground, plumber, mentioned same way, both paragraphs.
Can you clarify for me?
Oh, why there's two different, why there's 9 and 10?
Yeah, no. Reading this ordinance, B and C paragraphs basically say the same thing.
I'm gonna take a look at.
Clarify.
That's the difference. Thunder is boring and then
Yeah.
it's speed.
Very much the same. You're just that was where I was trying to figure out.
That way, they're gonna, because a lot of times they're gonna do it boring. The chapters that are already there.
Sure.
It's a chain of 53, so 5 feet.
Agriculture, PC2, division commercial district.
My name is Amos Akena. I am with the City of Newcastle Planning Department. Applicant is requesting to rezone approximately 1.3 acres from a larger general agriculture district to CC2 community commercial district. If this is approved, the CC2, the community commercial district portion will be subdivided through a warranty deed lot split process per section 153007, and that is subject to administrative approval. So the lot split will establish a separate commercial lot intended for the development of a proposed Dollar General store. This lot is adjacent to the North Main Street transportation corridor, where commercial uses have increasingly developed. Neighboring properties reflect that pattern. For instance, to the west, across the main street, you have a commercial storage facility, and of course an oil well. All that, the two lots are all zone community commercial district. To the south as well, below the church, across Northwest 16th Street, there is an extended stretch. It's over a mile of CC2 district with diverse commercial uses. Similarly, if you see north of that middle image, I think north of it, you see a stretch of CC2 district developing. So this is just reflecting a pattern of change in the zoning district along this corridor. Post Dollar General's retail store is typically a small format retail establishment ranging from approximately 9,000 to 10,500 square footage. These stores provide convenience retail goods such as packaged goods, household items, cleaning supplies, and grocery products. So in many rural and semi-rural areas, such establishments serve as local retail options where larger commercial centers are not readily available. So in this case, the proposed store would serve residents within and outside the city, most especially those with ease of access to. The introduction of this commercial retail use on a site previously zoned for agricultural purposes may result in an increase in site activity, including but not limited to vehicular trips, delivery truck access when they bring in goods, and of course extended operating hours. However, in our building permit review, this would be addressed. And note that the highway is designed to accommodate higher traffic volumes. However, access design and traffic circulation will be evaluated as well during the building permit review process to ensure safe ingress and egress to this property. So with that, staff supports and recommends approval of this rezoning change from General Agricultural District to CC2 Community Commercial District. Now, in regards to compatibility with the master plan, the Newcastle 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use designate this property as mixed-use residential and commercial. The CC2 Community Commercial District is compatible zoning with this land use. So it's compatible with our future land use map. So amendment to that is not required with this request. So we recommend. So when they brought in the application, they couldn't do just the 1.3 acre because it's zone R. And for you to do a lot split in R, it has to be at least a minimum of 5 acre.
Full track.
That's the 1.3 acre. Sakena with the City of Newcastle Planning Department. So this applicant is requesting to rezone 5 acre parcel from E1 Suburban Estate Residential District to General Agriculture. The purpose of rezoning is to allow the property to be utilized in accordance with the standard and permitted uses in the General Agriculture District. Specifically, he wants to add a secondary structure on the property and accommodate a small scale agricultural activity where he's able to plant uptown crops and keep livestock. And that is subject to compliance with the conditional use standards for farm animals as outlined in our code section 154025. Now, while all these uses I've mentioned is permitted within the E1 zoning district, the E1 zoning district imposes more restrictive development standards regarding accessory structures and their type, size, and location. Therefore, the proposed zoning change will provide the applicant with increased flexibility in terms of putting this structure and overall use of the property compared to the existing E1 and the suburban estate residential district. Now, however, all future development and uses of the property will remain subject to applicable permitting and review process to ensure compliance with city regulations. In 2025, the Commission considered a similar zoning request within the same corridor. I think it's 2 blocks. You can see that A in the middle image. That A was rezoned just last year in October, and the City Council approved it in November. So this is a second similar request within that same corridor along Northwest 8th Street. So it's a pattern. It's a pattern that has been emerging within this neighborhood. So we reviewed the potential impacts of this rezoning request. Generally, the property is an area where there are large lots, residential developments, E1 surrounded by E1 users, and then to the right of that is an E2, which is mostly single-family homes on large lots. It's very rural in character. So this request would not by any means change the neighborhood or have any effect on the neighborhood character. Potential impacts with this rezoning would be very minimal. Future uses, again, as I mentioned earlier, would be subject to review with the city regulations. Compatibility with a master plan. The Newcastle 2040 comprehensive plan and future land use map designate this property as suburban residential. The future land use designation does not list general agriculture as a possible district. Therefore, the approval of this zoning request requires a future land use amendment from suburban residential to estate residential. That allows general agriculture district as a possible zoning district. With that, staff support and recommend approval of this rezoning from E1 suburban residential district to general agriculture and a future land use amendment from suburban residential to estate residential. With that, I'll be able to answer any question.
Urban, state residential.
Yeah. So the estate that's the future land use. It's a comprehensive plan.
Right.
Yeah, and then the other one is
The next one's going from to ag.
so it's one is a zoning district, and as it is in our code of ordinances, and then the other is how it is stipulated in the future land use map. That's a
I get the
comprehensive.
future land use map, but why is there not an ag? It's just weird to say we're gonna take the land use and say it's only state residential, but we're gonna actually make it ag.
Question a different way, you have a mind. So how big is state residential in our?
It's about 2 acres. I mean, I think it's 1 acre minimum size.
What's the maximum size? I guess that's what.
So the maximum size is you could have 20 acres if you want. Minimum size you have to.
You said there's not an ag future land use.
No, there is. However, what I said earlier on was that, that if you could see on the future land use map on the third page, I think the other one has a different shade compared to everything else around it. So that was what was done previously. However, what could have been done is that shade could have been taken to art, but it wasn't done. So now we're following a trend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agriculture. Over here, for the application, rezone E1, urban space.
Oh, I can do this without coughing. The item number 14 and 15 go together. And 15 is a rezoning request, and 15 is use permitted on review for the change zoning if it's approved. So I go with the number 4, item 14 first. This item is a request to rezone approximately 9.29 acres from suburban estate residential district to general agricultural district. The purpose of the rezoning is to allow the applicant to pursue a use permitted on review or UPOR for a stable for the confined care of horses. The applicant acquired the property in 2023 and currently uses it as her primary residence. She raises and trains horses for Western performance activities. The site includes a residence, 2 loafing sheds, a covered horse arena, several stables with a total of 19 stalls, and a pasture area. The property is 9.29 acres in size under the General Agricultural District regulations. 1 horse is permitted per 70,000 square feet, which would allow for up to 6 horses on this site. The applicant currently has 9 horses, exceeding that allowance by 3. Because the property is less than 10 acres, a UPOR is required to allow a stable for the confined care of horses. The applicant is aware of this requirement and intends to pursue the UPOR to legitimize the current use and allow for continuation of the use in the future. In terms of impacts, staff does not anticipate any significant negative effects on surrounding properties. The area consists of a mix of large residential and agricultural uses, and the staff has not received any complaints from neighboring property owners. Based on this, staff recommends approval of rezoning case R 2026-008. The applicant is here tonight.
Currently got 9 horses on the plate. He's not.
Sorry, just because
Sure, yes,
Well, it's
that's
all-
fine.
it is. It's
Yeah,
all, you're not gonna do POR that's only allowed half, and she has obviously over the required 5 acre lot.
So what's the limit with current size of the property?
So she has 9.29, so currently, she's allowed to have, if the rezoning is allowed, well, approved, she can have up to 6 horses,
And currently, she can have any
6,
six right now without changing
Well-
anything.
not under E1.
That's what I'm asking.
Right.
So we're starting at what? How many horses can she have on the?
So if rezoning is approved, she can have up to, well, none, to answer the
None is
question.
the answer, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's start
Yes,
there.
yes.
Right. So we're going from none to 6.
Wait, I think in E1, she can have horses.
She can?
Yeah,
How many?
can have 6.
Okay. That's what I was trying to
Yeah.
grasp.
And E1 has the same conditional uses as agriculture. The lot area requirement is 5 acre minimum. Same conditional use. Horses are 70,000.
Hmm.
For 70,000 where and they're ag or E. But POR stable is only under ag, so it's not.
But then there is also horses that are grazing,
No,
not
I'm
farming.
thinking, which is relevant.
Correct.
Right.
How many horses do you have right now?
Praise the Lord. Look how many you have.
19.
That's important.
It's 19 stalls.
You are with the second one, right?
That's the structures. If Julia, if you want to go through the stalls and
Sure.
she has.
So there are 4 different areas that she has stalls. The upper right-hand corner where it shows 5 stalls, actually that is located behind her residence, that is attached to her house, and there were 5 stalls there, and she has 2 structures north of that pasture area. Those each structure contains 4 stalls,
Those
and
currently constructed, where those red spots are, there's buildings in those circles.
well, that one that where Janae is pointing, there was a building, and the new building, it seemed like new building has been replaced to that old one, but then the one to the west, that one wasn't there when we looked at this aerial photo. But
Okay. So
I
these are all
confirm.
indoor stalls? Yes or no?
it is open on the south side, I
Okay,
believe.
but it's got a roof.
Yes, yes.
All this has a roof.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And the one by the house is completely enclosed.
Okay.
And then the one with the 6 stalls, that's about 30 by 100 foot building, and it has 6 stalls in that building. And I did not measure each stall, but by the look of the dimensions of the buildings, they are approximately 12 by 16.
Okay, thank you. Fine. All right.
Right. And then where the red
That's right.
sorry.
I apologize, I interrupted.
Then where the Janelle was pointing, the red roof building, that's the outdoor arena. It's open. It just has roof on it. So basically, the standards that we are using is the industry standards, where 400 square foot maximum stalls, but she has 12 by 16, which is 192 square feet. So she's not quite there at maximum number, but she provides very nice stalls. I went there with them, very clean. The odor was very minimal. Thus, I mean, I went there when it was really windy day. It wasn't even a problem. Very nicely kept, especially the pasture area, and there were it was very nice facility, like Mr. Harris said. And also the paddock area, I calculated them approximately, and those are fenced separate areas, so she can separate the horses in case she needs to care for them separately, controlling their diet, or if one is sick or quarantined, she has different horse barns for the quarantining purposes. So those are the approximate square footage of those individual fenced areas.
Comment is if there's nobody here next to their neighbors.
But it seemed like I checked the historical photos. It goes way back, even before the year 2000. I believe it's been used as a horse-related business, and the applicants just bought it in 2020. Yes, so that the building with 6 stalls, that was showing up in the photo since 1998, I believe. And the horse arena, that one was built in 2000. Yeah, for quite some time. The applicant is requesting approval of a use permitted on review to allow the property to be used as a short-term rental on an occasional basis. Currently, the applicant resides at the subject property and intends to continue using it as their primary residence. There are no active short-term rental operations at this time. The purpose of this request is to obtain approval in advance, providing flexibility for potential future use. The applicant is also seeking to better understand the city's short-term rental process as they explore local real estate investment opportunities. If approved, the home would only be rented in its entirety while the owners are away traveling. The applicant does not intend to rent individual rooms or portions of the home while it is occupied, as any short-term rental activity would be infrequent, with rental periods not exceeding 30 consecutive days. The property provides adequate on-site parking, and guest occupancy would be limited to 6 individuals unless otherwise approved. The applicant has indicated that house rules would prohibit events such as parties, require compliance with all city noise regulations, and require the collection and the payment of applicable hotel tax. Pets would only be allowed with prior approval. As part of this request, staff is recommending the following conditions. I may repeat myself here, but no events, including weddings, receptions, or parties. All parking must be accommodated on site within paved areas. Hotel tax must be reported and paid. In terms of impacts, the proposed occasional use as a short-term rental is not expected to negatively affect surrounding properties. The area is residential in character with lots exceeding 2 acres, which provides additional buffering between the properties. With this, the staff recommends approval of this UPOR to use it as a short-term rental property.
Short-term rental. And so the UPR section of our code, that if it's not addressed in the ordinance, then you go through the.
Day, 30 days, basically what's it.
Yes, not to exceed 30 days, no individual, so the stipulations for the UPR that I have are no individual room rental, rentals not to exceed 30 days stays, for one renter, no parties or events, all parking has to be provided on site on paid parking. They can't park on the grass and, park on the street. They can have people over, you can't have an event, like if you were visiting family, your grandparents and stuff were gonna come over and visit, which would be about family reunion with your people. Sure.
audio on that side.
Yes, so no, neighbors were notified this was any, rezoning or UPOR, or 300-foot radius. Has to be, somebody needs.
My name's Christy Davis. We own the property just to the west of this, and we are currently in the project. Is this, I mean, excuse me, I may be ignorant to this, but is it kind of like an Airbnb? Is that what this, they want to turn this into? Hey, areas there now, current. There's, they only,
But
it's grown.
No,
The actual road, branch road, is driveway.
No, I do not, I'm sorry.
So are they asking to Airbnb the current house that's on the property?
Yes,
Okay,
when they are away on
okay,
vacations, traveling.
okay. I wasn't clear on what, what some of this lingo meant, but I just,
so yeah, it would be like, so Airbnb, VRBO, so they would list the property on those sites and it could be used for a short term rental. Besides the time they're living, their primary residence, and they want to utilize that as an Airbnb.
You can get your copy of the staff report if you want to read it.
okay. I mean, I just didn't want it to. Kind of understand, try to get.
Let me get you my
Okay, okay, all right, thank you.
And I will state that if they were in, they're, say this gets approved by city, right, say that in that. If they follow the stipulations of the UPOR, shut them down. If they're not, if they don't follow.
Okay.
big enough. Three, three, three. Thanks.
Working designated area. So, as you remember, in December, this item was continued. Thanks with the developer and, medical commission. So, Gordon Harness and Will Wright, Steve Lita, and myself met to discuss some of the items that came up that were of concern. Mainly being, a couple things, the parking on the street, the road width, no sidewalks. So the applicant has gone back and has amended the PUD, and has widened the streets. They went from a 20-foot roadway to a 24-foot right of way. They've added sidewalks along Riverfront Drive and as well throughout the development, sidewalks on at least one side of the road. So there's a concern of pedestrians sharing the roadway, with the cars. So it's serving the same purpose. So now they've separated that, widened the road. Those are some of the major things that changed in the PUD and in the preliminary plan. So just going through it, this is for 2025-005, a rezoning from PUD to PUD. The current PUD, and I'll get to that in a second, is a little bit different than what this proposal is. The developers are in our land development with the designing engineer, CEC, and building culture is their architectural design consultant as well. This is located approximately 1.5 miles from the I-44 and Highway 37 interchange on the north side of Highway 37. It's approximately 77.32 acres. The surrounding land use is single family to the north, to the east and west, and across the highway as well. There's commercial uses and self-storage. Surrounding zoning is E3 to the north, RF1 to the east, and CC2. To the south is CC2, Community Commercial District and Ag. And to the west is E1, Suburban Estate Residential, Planned Unit Development, as well as CC2 and E1. The future land use, 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map designated this as, general commercial is existing now. When this item was first brought forward to planning commission, the land use amendment was approved and recommended to just use residential and commercial. So that's the current land use. So the existing zoning is a PUD, like I stated. This is just a site map of what the existing zoning allows. The existing zoning in the PUD allows for residential development to the north under the E3 half acre, 27,000 square foot lots. They amended that to allow a half acre lot development, single family, with commercial development for the 22 acres on the east side of Riverfront Drive and the full frontage for about 24.6 acres for CC2 along the frontage. That was recommended for approval in November of 21, and City Council approved that in so the uses that are allowed right now under the current zoning would allow anything to be constructed under the current CC2 General Commercial District. So anything, stores, gas stations, big box stores, restaurants. What they are proposing is a variation from which HUDs do. HUDs allow the variation from the base zoning district, and they created their own zoning. Like I stated, they went from a 20-foot initial proposal to 24 local road, with reduced from 26, which is our standard local road width is 26, so it's a 2-foot variance to that, with a 4-inch rolling curb, parking only allowed on one side of the street. There's a total of, 228 lots, for the village single family with a minimum lot area of 3,000 square feet. And per the site plan that goes along with this PUD, I've calculated, 167 lots out of that 228 lots that most of them, none of them are 3,000 square feet. Most of them range from 4 to 5 to 6. Our standard single family, RF1 lot requirement is 7,200 square feet. So they range a lot within that. In fact, 90 lots are well above that 7,200 square foot, but you have some lots that are 15,000, some that are 9,000. So this PUD has a variation of lot sizes in it as well. So there's 9 multifamily lots. The other thing that they did is they changed this from being multifamily, listened to some of the neighbors' concerns, and added the buffer. They moved some of the multifamily towards the front here. This is multifamily here, here, here. There's 9 lots. There is one here, but they did increase the buffer and put a landscape buffer in here. So that's the only multifamily that would be abutting the current Riverview Estates. And the maximum height for that is 3 stories. And the village single family is maximum height 3 stories. Multifamily, the 9 lots, with the minimum lot area of 3,000 square feet, which all of the multifamily lots far exceed the 3,000 square feet. They're more like 7,000, 79, they far exceed that, with the maximum of 2 stories for the multifamily. Decrease from the 3 stories that they originally. The Village Center commercial residential is 20 lots with a minimum lot area of 1,200 square feet with a maximum store height of 3 stories or 55 feet. The front setbacks are reduced. There's 0 lot lines for your front setbacks. Setbacks are 3 feet, abutting another property, or 0 if it is backing up to an open space. But it has to meet the building code requirements for fire separation. So they put that 3 feet. And a 3-foot setback where they adjoin a private. The overall density is 3.3 lots per acre. They provided 15.28 acres of common area with 1.5 acres being improved parkland. So they have several pocket parks and there's common area that runs through the development. And this is a far increase of what the overall 3.5%. The acreage is more than what that would be required under the current. Previous parking would be allowed for private driveways, so that could be a mix of different types of materials, from pavers to compacted crushed granite. That would all be private driveways. They established an ARB for this, which is an architectural review board for this development. All applications for any building permits have to be approved by the ARB before they can come forward to city for a building permit. Minimum parking requirement is 1 space per unit, and 1 in the commercial area, 1 per 200 square feet of gross lease space, with shared and cross-access parking. The masonry requirements for this development, as in straight zoning, are not allowed by state statute. Cities cannot dictate what type of exterior materials could be put on single-family residences. The PUD allows us to do that. With this PUD, they are proposing 40% masonry on all sides, with 60% being other masonry or hardy board, and no vinyl siding allowed.
side?
every side. So the applicant has gone through, we worked with the applicant for about a year now, over a year on this project. It's been vetted through, planning commission that asked that before, and they've gone back to the drawing board to try to accommodate some of those concerns, like I stated early in the presentation. We do have some protests, as you know, from this, and yeah, responded to some of their concerns with the redesign of the. Staff does support and recommend approval of the rezoning for R 2025-005 for review. Here. The. Answer questions.
Specific zones are the 3-story building.
That would be in just this commercial area right here. I'm sorry, the single family is the 3-story. This is the maximum, 55 feet. So, you know,
Still a backside of 4.
that's right.
Understood that as the multifamily. Going to be 3 stories.
It's the
That's what I thought. That's what I. Okay.
with a maximum of 12 units per building. So they did. It was 3 stories, and then it was 2 stories.
On the commercial side, but we've got a 20-foot buffer.
Dean Colita, Civil and Environmental Consultants, 4700 Gallardia Parkway, representing the applicant. The commercial piece, the intent of that is going to be a community building, some type of event space for the residents. We did put 10 there, but that could be increased to 20 if we needed to. It's not. I think it's been completely figured out the dimensions of the building or anything. This
Pool.
no, that's not the intent of that. He's at this point.
So will I miss the landscaping on the north side of that family? Then you went to 20 feet and it's got some kind of landscape requirement.
Yeah, it's a buffer.
Explain to me what will be in.
I think we have a spacing of trees. I think every look back at the, yeah, but I think it's every 50 feet we're gonna have to have a tree of some type of indigenous tree. It's stated. I can find it for you. Yes.
So that's not solid.
How could that commercial building be that's looking into somebody?
Always count.
Different requirements for the commercial in our code initially, but are we following that code specifically to that commercial lot back to the residential? You have to have fence and all sides have to be based with the masonry material of some sort.
The masonry requirement would be throughout. needs to be stated on the site plan. That's the portion that they developer we willing to put the fence in.
The intent was to
Yeah.
fence the exterior.
That is what
I believe the intent is to fence the exterior property.
in what manner?
We had, I think it's, minimum is gonna be a stockade fence
6 foot.
for 6 foot.
6 foot stockade fence. Start at 20 feet wide streets and went 24 and goes 26.
I guess she mentioned all the changes, but we did try to hear all the residents' concerns. We met with city staff, planning commissioners, trying to address everything we could. The sidewalks on one side of the street is throughout all public and private streets, the wider streets, the parking along all common areas on one side of the street. If you look at the layout now, moving to multifamily, we're actually able to increase the on-site parking, which is not on the street, off the street. And they've increased that to where we far exceed the minimum parking.
Have imagery of that, the public can see.
It's right up the screen.
Well, I'm not talking, like, you had a meeting, you had imagery that showed the road with sidewalk, cars parked.
Oh, you're talking about Seaside? Yeah.
Yeah, that had showed the conceptual idea of what this looks like, because I have it in my head, but nobody else does. I mean, do we have any of that?
Seaside picture, I do not have that.
Do you have any of that?
I could exit out of this and go to the development handbook that kind of has rendering.
This,
Yeah, that's in there.
Yeah, they've got some
Yeah.
pictures of that.
There's some different renderings of what it's supposed to be.
Find you.
on-road parking.
I go on this subject of, will parallel park.
Yeah, you would.
Way this is not.
Correct, yeah. So the roadway width of 24, face curb, would not be impeded by the parking. The parking would be on that within the right of way. And we also agreed in the PUD that any parking that is head-in parking where the actual parking exceeds beyond the right of way, the basically HOA, the property owners association will have to maintain all parking. The city will not be required to maintain the parking, although it may be in the right of way. The parking, only the streets is what the city's maintaining. It's on the preliminary plat. It's on the
Who's gonna enforce that?
City staff will.
So we're gonna have a private road, but we're gonna enforce that and take care of.
Well, the parking alongside the road.
Okay.
Just the parking.
How about the private driveway?
Driveway.
Yeah, who's gonna take care of it?
That's the homeowner or the property owner.
So basically, they just have it, and if they don't take care of it, they don't take care of it.
Like anything.
Like anybody owns the property.
Well,
So we get.
makes sense.
But we also have a regulation to it. We have to give you- Here, you need variances, right?
There's variances on the amount of material. It's not just concrete, but they can do cobblestone, they can do crushed, they can do stamped concrete, they can do asphalt.
Can you do gravel driveway?
We didn't stipulate gravel. No, we have
Fresh granite.
crushed granite, but that's more of a,
Fresh granite.
yeah, it's more of a landscape material that compacts. But yeah, we didn't stipulate gravel driveways, which I don't think will be allowed by the architectural review board because that would not be sightly. This would be high-end
That's
development.
a great question. I assume the developer's gonna be primary on architectural board. We only have enough folks in here.
So the goal of going through this with the city and that whenever there's a building permit application, whether it's single family residential, multifamily, commercial, everything is laid out to where she and her staff, her team, Janae and her team can go through, make sure they meet every criteria that's stated in here. And it may vary from city code slightly, but it's all stated in the document to where as long as they meet everything in here, which is very detailed, and she has a clear path to make sure they meet the requirements before a building permit can be established. And the architectural review board has to approve every site plan application before they submit it to the city for approval, which is this thick document with all the handbook that you'd see on architectural stuff. Yeah, the lighting, the landscaping, the look, the materials, all has to be reviewed by the developer and his architectural review board team to make sure it meets the fit, the aesthetics, the quality that they're looking for before they even allow someone to submit building permits to the city.
Now that HOA, the architectural groups that have to approve that stuff too.
Yes, sir. Which increases the quality, consistency, and everything else. And obviously, HOA. The neighborhoods that don't have HOAs that are just standard neighborhoods that can typically go south. This will not be. This will be quality. I think it's in his right for the amount of money he's putting into this deal to make sure it's nice. So he's, and once he does sell all the lots, it still goes to the architectural review board. It just may be the resident community that govern it. But all the rules are here that they can't deviate from unless, they vote on it with the city's approval. I think there's actually to change those, the city has to have say in that last change of it.
I didn't know that HOAs had anything to do with the city.
No, this the PD.
Oh, Pete,
Yes, the PUD. Yeah, it's property owner association, they have to follow the PUD.
Yes,
themselves.
they do.
Yes, sir.
I got one more question. Where all that commercial is with the residential upstairs in that central area?
Yes, sir.
I know we had a lot of dialogue the first time we talked about that, about parking. Maybe you or Will or Gordon can address how we fix that, or did we change anything, or do we add any parking in that general area to help? I mean, we were all talking about the coffee shop, right? If you recall.
Yes, and to meet the requirements, they have to have parking for every unit. So that's why we allowed for off-street parking parallel to meet that.
It's in that area.
Yes, it can. Yes, until, as for instance, these townhome lots here you're looking at, until we know kind of how the configuration is, they're going to have to establish where that can go next to the building. If they're on the south side or the north side, they'll have
But
to.
it'll be on one side, we found out, because it's in the PUD, is that correct?
The parking would be on one side of the street
That's what I'm
to
saying,
meet
once-
parking requirements. Yes, sir.
Right. There
Or-
will be some.
Or they would use the parking for basically the whole commercial area, because that's kind of part of the commercial area or the PUD. So they could use the parking lot there. They could have off-street parking next to their units as well. So there's some flexibility there to make it, but they still have to meet the parking requirements.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Single family district language, it says they allow permitted uses, and one of them is accessory dwelling unit. It says yes. Okay.
Yes, it allows for an ADU, and at first, they didn't have stipulations. Accessory too, we went in and had to put maximum square footage to an ADU.
saying.
Correct.
Single family, it's not allowed additional.
Yeah, I guess the intent of an ADU, so with an elderly, a mother, father, they want to live on the property, want to have their basically cabana area, an extra room out the back for their college kids, whatever they be. I mean, it's just an extra separate area from the house that's conditioned space.
You can build a single family dwelling, you can build an ADU and VRBO that.
Yeah,
I would intend,
It's just,
they're both allowed.
but we didn't allow.
Short-term rental, right?
yeah,
There's-
sure.
So I guess they technically here they could.
Each unit has that.
Another thing with the parking, these counts are that we have on the site plan. They're one per unit, but you also the vast majority of single family lots are going to have a driveway and a garage. So just parking shown, you're going to have at least a driveway, and like I said, most are going to have garage, which should be one or two. So then you're going to have 3 parking spots per or 4, and your typical 20-foot wide driveway, 4 per single family lot, which would definitely increase the parking for the overall. Just the intent. A lot of these single family units are going to be just a regular single family house, just a little bit different style, obviously, but would fit on that lot. So the parking, I think, with the off-street parking along one side, and additional parking be provided for the multifamily lots, the parking be provided on next to all common area lots should cover by a long shot what the parking would be for this. Obviously, any emergency services, 24, and of course, even if you had head-in parking, just like your typical, retail center, you have 24 feet for 90-degree parking, and it meets all that. So there's plenty of parking where it works for residents, and it meets the. Yes, sir. Yeah, we did a vehicle tracker with a ladder truck. Will also be City of Newcastle construction standards. So concrete 6 inches, asphalt, whatever the standard paving section that City of Newcastle requires, we are requiring that. Public infrastructure, water, street, drainage, all has to meet city code. There is a couple of variances on that, but it's pretty much all the construction is going to be in person.
Permission to do the deceleration lane.
ODOT, we checked with them. We did our initial traffic impasse analysis with them, and they did not have any issues with the driving locations nor the XL cell lanes. The only issue they had was they did not want to allow a traffic signal there until warrants were met. So if we want, it was a no on that, but he said if it meets those warrants, then they would talk about potentially doing that. But yes, the XLD cell lanes were something that actually helped us flow with traffic through there. And with the center lane already in place, it met all the turning and the.
I just think that was a must.
And then once we do the first final plat, we're gonna have to do a full-blown TIA, talk about level of service and have to study both intersections, east and west, and will be a more of an in-depth traffic impact analysis for environment. Regards to density, and that's kind of the concern, that density overall of this development would be less than your typical family.
Well, 3.3.
Then we would be 4+ in a regular subdivision.
The overall area, or to give you an idea of the development. And area being 15.66, and then the right of way is 20.16.
Common area that's not, well, I guess it's accounted for, but you can see behind the lots, it's kind of meant to be, instead of having your traditional lot where you have a lot line and everything just backs up to that shared back lot line with a fence or typical neighborhood, well, there's space in between the lots, so it has common area, people can walk, trails. Space, instead of just giving it to one owner, now it's for everybody to use, and you can see the layout. It's
Those
behind,
green areas.
yes, sir. They're all behind all the lot configurations. They have space in between, so they can, use this common area, open space, and connect trails, whatever, landscape.
Multifamily, is this just conceptual of where the buildings will be, or is that?
It's conceptual, yeah. I mean, they did the layout, but it's not 100%. They know what the building permit would be. They would have to meet all the requirements if the spacing of trees is an issue, I don't think that's a problem to change. I mean, it's, that's a big deal. We just put a number in there just as a minimum, although we'll likely exceed. I'm pretty sure we will exceed all the landscaping in this, the way that the concept plan and the vision is. It's going to have a lot of landscaping. Tree trees.
That was my concern.
This is 37 feet, 38 feet
From that wall this fall, so you would have an extra 12 feet.
we could do some. I mean, I'd have to ask Russell, but I'm not sure if we'd have an issue with tightening the spacing up on that just to get more screening. Yeah.
Yeah.
1 for 25 is fine. I think typical is, like I think Oklahoma City's like 1 for 30, so that's fine.
With site plan.
Yeah, that's true. I guess spacing per type of tree planting, because if you plant trees too close together, they won't die. So like maybe
Right.
25 feet or standard spacing for whichever type of tree you're putting. Spacing by arborists.
Center standard spacing.
These are all decisions, right?
Yeah, I think we put deciduous or evergreen, I believe, in there.
Privacy.
I have lots of opinions, but it depends on the day, right? So the question is, I love it, I don't know when you got leaves, but it's a little hard. I mean, a conifer is a little hard to keep up.
They just don't grow as fast here, and those don't grow as well here. The Leland side, which you're gonna get a fuller. They, you're not gonna get high. And a lot of bread.
Like, so the established don't have 2 stories in the building. Front facing building, complex or whatever, but along that line, well, I mean, south facing. Like, I don't know where a bedroom,
East of the,
egress, or all that, but there's that face, these 2 lots along here who have already established private homes that don't want 2-story apartment buildings looking down into their garden. How you specify that? It's, those aren't, that's why I asked the question, are these established or is that locked in stone?
Maybe I mean, it is a concept plan, I believe.
Right.
oh, the siding of the building.
I'm siding, I'm talking windows.
Line of sight.
That's what I'm getting at, like, but you can build it in such a way that those structures along that back edge have no rear facing windows or whatever the structure is that don't impede on those people who have already established their homes and thought this was gonna be more residential stuff in their backyard.
Approve a
Those are the
screen.
complaints I've heard. 3
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
So we could prove.
Really just that line.
Yellow and the blue?
It's where these 2 pieces meet.
No, I understand.
It's what's established and what we're adding next to it is not what they expected. So I'm trying to prevent, and help that situation out along that line, really.
Prove screening per line of sight, if, when it comes to building permit, if you have a line of sight, if there is a window, just meet fire code and you're looking at, you'd have to provide screening so there is no direct line of sight.
Mhm.
I mean, that wouldn't be hard to do. I believe that's reasonable, because line the tree up with the view so you don't have to look down. I mean, that could work.
On lots bordering.
Or have a frosted window, usually have that where you can't go. Window, but you can't really necessarily see, exit okay. I mean, there's options. I'm not sure how this will.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know how you.
By the lot bordering.
Family. It's not the rest of the resident,
They
single
moved
family.
it all except one.
It's just that one space.
That one space, and that's where they got the 20-foot buffer with the,
Mm-hmm.
so the distance, so 20-foot setback with the 25 on the center or for standard safety for species requirement, it makes it evergreen. The trees. You got the buffer, the 20-foot wide plus the landscape. All these abutting properties, and I get it, but their houses are not against these rear
No,
backyards.
but you hear what I'm saying, where they were established residences who had an idea of what was gonna be here, spend $500,000 on a home, and that's not what's coming here. So if it were me, I'd be mad too. I mean, I lived in one part of this town, and they put 400 storage units in my backyard, so I moved. It felt like the code was violated of what was allowed by the code in order for the storage units to be put there. The minimum 5 acres allowed for commercial, and they allowed 10. So we want to not allow that for residences in Newcastle. My personal experience, and I don't want to allow it to continue.
Family lot, abutting.
So it's commercial on the other side of the road.
What?
Commercial on the other side, going west.
There's a road between there, and I don't. You're talking the yellow.
Where the vent thing is.
Yeah, but that was where I asked about the landscape, the 6-foot fence, and then have to put the,
Well, I don't expect them to put one there in the back.
probably not. I would think that 20-foot left would be better.
Put the lot.
Yeah, that commercial is what, 2 stories max? Is that correct? No, not multi-family, commercial.
That's 355.
Do you want to plan?
Yeah,
Hey. Gotta do something.
yeah. Those two pieces, that's all I'm saying.
I think you bring into the opaque on lot.
Multifamily.
Yeah.
Well, 15.
I think that's the lot.
Lot 46.
46. Lot 15 and 46.
Block 4 and 46, block 17.
Yeah.
Remember the far side.
Sorry. Yes, you signed it under CC2.
Commercial.
Yeah, the only thing that they would
We
have
could. I know, because I live right on down the street. I know. Big construction.
required
I hope they don't.
the fence.
Yeah, I get the fence. Get.
You're talking the former PUD?
The
Yeah,
PUD.
yeah, the one, look behind her.
This is what, right now, it does not.
Yeah, but there was a residential street right here.
No, 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 I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Where that multi-family is.
Right.
Anyway, I'm just saying, I want to make sure everybody understands that that whole side was commercial. In fact, the whole front.
And it is, it's, well, that's what it is now.
No. That whole section. is
Oh.
commercial. It's all zoned.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yes.
yeah, then they can.
Everybody understands where it started, where we're at today.
Right.
Part of the relevant history of agriculture.
Okay.
old trees.
feet total height.
Here. I'm gonna address that. Also. City, city. They'll be built. City. City. Here, there's 20.
It has to do with the station, stored water within the storage tank itself. It's plenty of height. There should be no reason why anybody in this area should have water pressures. We have a water tower right next to the top of the hill. So it's connections, it's keeping it higher, the water surface higher to get the pressure in there, keeping it filled. It could be the pumps coming in or not keeping up with demand. The line size coming out may be constricted. So there's all those things that would be looked at for this area in general, which we'd have to do studies for, which we did a preliminary water model, but we'll have to dive in deeper once this gets into the actual first final plat to put in that infrastructure. And same with the lift station. Obviously, it has to go in day one because there's no sewer out here that serve any lot right now.
Right.
So we have to go in and figure out, okay, this lift station we designed, which we did a preliminary design, serves Riverview villages. But if there's other drainage areas that can get to it, then there's cost sharing with the city. That's something that I think we can discuss just to make sure that it basically make the lift station deeper, and then of course gravity mains would have to go. And as long as someone can get to it, if they want to connect, all those conversations can happen during the design of that lift station. But yeah, if it's going to go there, might as well get as if people are willing to cost share, I think that would be an option for sure.
voting on it. Right. I would think I would probably do it. Brady Smith, 3675 Deep Swell Circle, longtime Newcastle resident, moved out here in '68. So I'm very aware of progress being important to a city and a city's budget. A couple of things on this development. Not only live there now, but Mr. Hibden, I worked for 22 years. I ran his business for him in Home City when he owned it. And when he sold the land to the developers, I don't believe either one of them are currently alive now. Mr. Hibden is gone and the original purchaser is gone. There was a lot of agreements on how the land was to be used, or he wouldn't have sold it. He owned thousands of acres out there. And phase one was within what he had envisioned when he sold the land. What he was told on phase two and phase three was with what he envisioned. What's being proposed isn't even close. And he would roll over in his grave if he knew what was going on, and he knows progress as well. So I wanted to say that. There was some agreements made by the originals and Mr. Hibden. I can't speak because I wasn't at the meeting, but I've spoken with people that were, that are currently still with us. There was supposed to be down in the river area where you can't build because of flood control. There was supposed to be maintained park, walking trails, possible equestrian stuff. They did a little bit initially that probably sufficed, but what was done during phase one, before they started phase three, I think was the north end, before all of that, what they did in phase one, erosion-wise, caused all that park area to go through massive change in the river. And it wasn't the river changing course, it was the runoff coming down from our phase that deteriorated the river, which caused the bank to go back to the south over 100 yards. So we're losing a lot of what the original design was supposed to be for the public. You don't call it public area, whatever you call it. What is it? Common area, yes. So I just wanted to say that there's a lot of problems with the current development. And I want to read this is part of Helper's website that everybody that bought out there had access to and still, I think, does if they haven't changed it. It says, welcome to Riverview Estates, where luxury meets tranquility in the coveted Tri-City area of Newcastle. Nestled just off 44, Riverview Estates offers the perfect blend of urban convenience and rural serenity. As you enter the community, you'll be greeted by hidden treasures at every turn, from the picturesque landscape pond at the entry with its soothing fountain to sweeping views of mature trees, rolling hills, and access to the scenic Canadian River. At Riverview Estates, each home is a masterpiece of timeless design, with homes starting at approximately 2,200 square feet of living space on half-acre to 2-acre home sites, with plenty of room to spread out and enjoy the privacy you deserve. Riverview Estates promises a lifestyle of luxury and comfort. Discover the best of both worlds at Riverview Estates, where city convenience meets country charm at every moment, filled with beauty and tranquility. Very passionate about it. I live there. And what they proposed isn't even close in this phase. It's not what was in the phase originally when they first set up for the addition. It was going to be like homes on like lots right beside us. And I don't think even the people on the, what would be the south end of the current part, I don't think would object to like homes being up against them. Progress is part of it. We all know that. It's coming. It's coming rapidly for Newcastle. So I don't think they would oppose a like-minded addition or a phase, because that's what it is. It's a phase. It's not a whole brand new addition, or it shouldn't have been. I don't know how it was wrote up. that was a different phase for our current edition. And it's not looking like it's being perceived that way. I appreciate what he was saying earlier about the people that live on that south end and his concern for all of that. But it's really for all of us because we gotta drive through that to get to our residents. And it's gonna change dramatically what we were sold on when we went out there and fell in love with the addition. It's not even close. And I don't know the developers. Mr. Hibden knew the original developer. But shame on them for selling us one thing and trying to change it to do something different. And that's really it. So thank you.
Costanchi, 3515 Riverfront Drive. Just wanted to clarify a few things from the meeting we had on 12/15. At 2 hours and 9 minutes into the meeting, it was stated that we had an HOA meeting. We have never had an HOA meeting. It almost feels like it's adversarial. We're willing to work and talk with people, but it's gone between the board here, the commission here, and the developers. At 2 hours and 22 minutes, the board member said they could meet with 2 people, with the developers at City Hall to go over the final things and questions. At 2:24, a resident asked, when will this become public? And they said, this will become public and be included in the minutes. We've never seen it. It's been 102 days since then. I called and got some information on what was changed. And I ended up getting a packet on Friday, which was very nice of you to send that to me. And I've gone through it. The people here that live on the north of that, we represent about $68 million in property value. They've made some changes, small ones. The density is 80 lots just on the east side of Riverfront Drive. We were sold the same package that he was sold. I'm moving in here. And it's just not what we have to look forward to every day, especially as all this is being built. Right now, they got 228 single-family homes, 71 units on the south central side, or I'm sorry, on the west side. On the south central side, there's 14 units and 6 in the central, and then there's 11 residential commercial. I looked up on Data USA for Newcastle, the average person per household is 2.67. That estimates to about 813 people. Now you go to the north with us, there's 128 homes, one being built, 129. North of that is gonna be 68 lots. When you take all that in, it's gonna be about 1,340 residents, roughly. Looked up on Data USA, the average number of cars per Newcastle is 2. That comes out to about 1,055 cars going in and out of there. Maybe not every day, but I mean, it's a great concept. The design is really nice. We travel to Baltimore a lot, and my son lives there. They can walk to a restaurant, they can walk to a Target, they can walk anywhere. They have street parties. But there's somewhere to walk, there's an anchor to walk to, or something you can do. Say this to be walkable, but to where? Where can anybody walk to besides around the circles? So, it'd be nice to work with people and us not be left out, since we're the homeowners that have to live with this. Your decision affects us for as long as we live there. We bought this home to be our forever home, to be with family that lives here. So, and so did a few other people here. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. That's the type of comment that I think the council.
Come back and say it to them as well.
But they're the ones that are.
We don't know if the minutes get passed to them.
My name is Zena Roach. We live at 3651 Oxbow. We're in the southwest corner, just west corner of this HUD. My questions is, we talked about parking on the streets on one side. The main thoroughfare that currently exists, that's 26 feet wide. I think it would be appropriate to make sure that no cars can park on that main thoroughfare. Just think it'd be best to be stated effectively. Applicants have agreed that there's no parking on either side of the main thoroughfare that currently exists.
New roadways. Yeah, we want to state no parking allowed on Riverfront.
Yeah, that's, we'll actually state that as if that's no
yeah.
on-street parking on.
I think it'd be absolutely important. The other thing is, when we talk about the 24-foot wide roads, when we talk about one vehicle being parked on one side, that leaves 16 feet if there's an F1, if the average F-150 is parked on that side of the road, which is 8 feet wide with the mirrors. Saying they're not 24 feet correct section. So, okay. I was unclear on that.
That's why I asked for the imagery that we don't have.
Yeah.
To show you that the road is 24 feet wide, always. Always. There's crushed granite or pavement or cement or whatever off the road as the parking on one side of the street.
Okay.
Throughout the addition.
So is it also stated on the 24-foot wide roads that there is no parking on the side? Or they can park in their designated area and then park a vehicle right next to that? I mean, if
parallel parking would be in private.
it's stated that it can't be in the road.
Could be striped, right?
Yeah, there's no on-street parking, so you cannot park on the street. You have to have designated parking.
Could be a solid white stripe line there.
Yes, yeah.
Well, I mean, because in our neighborhood, we can park on the other side.
Yeah, but there's no striping. It's just
There is no stripe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This would be a very different layout.
Yeah. It's just unclear this time.
I understand that. That's why I was asking for the imagery.
Using earlier in the discussion. We've benefited from some of the changes of the moves of some of the multifamily. So, I mean, we appreciate that from a personal standpoint, but we also sympathize with the residents who it's expected with some of the additional changes that were more recent. We had the exact same feelings. That's why we brought up our concerns. And so we'll just be staring at a circle parking lot, if you will, aka a cul-de-sac. Not as big of a deal, but still the density is definitely an issue in our minds. Not sure where exactly all the children are going to play in this particular PUD design. Most of the common areas that are stated seem somewhat inadequate to me. The main section there that is designated as a common area is a giant creek that goes down to a snake-infested pond. So also the terrain there and the topography of it isn't very conducive for children playing either. So there are some misleading ideas, I think, in our opinion, personally. We're definitely opposed to the density that's been shared already. But that's what I had to share. Thank you for your.
That way for me.
So we're.
Oh, I can stand, I just can't step. I broke my leg, so I'm skiing. Thank you. My name is Tamara Dickens, 3469 Falling River Drive. I want to preface my comments with, I do continue to appreciate that this is a very nice development, that the developer is trying to do something very high scale. I appreciate that. But I continue to object to it being butted directly to Riverview Estates that is polar opposite what we all bought there for. The northern boundary, if that was buffered more than by 20 feet, I think a lot of the problems would be solved with a lot of us that object to this. I live on the east side, on the south end. I'm going to be looking at the remaining multifamily section and the very, very small lots beside it. I want to clarify one thing. You talked about 6-foot stockade fences. Where is that going to be? The entire perimeter? Those of us that built in Riverview, we're not allowed to build 6-foot stockade fences. We don't want to look at 6-foot stockade fences. So that's one issue I want to make you aware of. The multifamily section and these very small lots to the east of it, a 20-foot perimeter or a 20-foot buffer space. Mr. Gardner, I know a little bit about this. If you have a 2-story building with a 20-foot section, plant a tree behind it, you're not, and it's shaded on the north, you're not going to be able to grow much of a tree in 20 feet. So I'm not really satisfied that that's going to be much of a buffer. Those trees are going to struggle, they're going to fail, there's no, provision for them being replaced, etc. I think that buffer needs to be wider. And I would like to see it required to be 60% evergreen at least. So that, the comments about not having windows facing these existing lots, I don't care if that 2-story building has a window or not. I don't want to look up at it. So I would like to make sure that there is a buffer, that I'm not seeing those buildings. And it's going to take more than 20 feet to grow a decent vision block. So the 6-foot stockade fence is all the way around the entire. And can we clarify where you were talking about the ADU? I'm not familiar with that, and I apologize, I couldn't hear a lot of what you've been saying. Can you clarify for me so these very small lots and the single family lots, they're going to be allowed to build extra buildings for housing?
They can exceed 2 square feet, 800 square feet of addition space. So basically,
And is there a reason that needs to be involved, I mean, included?
it just is an allowance for an accessory dwelling unit for aging in place or multi-generational living.
I don't think Riverview Estates has that provision.
That's probably HOA, or the HOA is,
It's
or
in
the HOA would have that.
Yeah.
And right now, we are in the process, so City of Newcastle is looking at amending a lot of our standard zoning
Okay.
ordinances, because they haven't been updated in over 3 years. And so accessory dwelling units are starting to be something where people are asking more, I moved my grandparents in, or,
Right.
can I do an addition with a kitchen? I can't really have a kitchen because I live in a duplex. And the challenges to allowing accessory dwelling units, so they've written a certificate plan to allow that.
Well, again, I just would like to see, there be provisions for, those aren't right on that back property line, especially where we're bounding Riverview Estates. If they're 50 feet off that back line and there's a decent buffer between.
You say decent buffer, so, there's 20 feet at this one with the multifamily, and
Again,
there's 10 with the.
you're not gonna grow a decent tree in 20 feet, I'm telling you. Not with a 2-story building to the south of it.
So when you say decent, I'm just trying to get an idea. of
Something that would
dimension.
block vision of a 2-story building.
So like 25 feet, 30 feet,
I would say 30.
that's what your suggestion is?
I mean, with that space, I could grow a decent evergreen, 2 stories tall. That might survive.
And you're just
Being
talking
shaded.
about where the multifamily and the commercial is.
In these very, very small lots where those buildings are gonna be right on the back
So
line.
we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lots, and the rest of them are those estate lots. So the really large high lots that go around the common area.
Well, and even on the west side, there's a couple of really
There's a
small
couple.
lots on that north
Yeah, there's
boundary.
1, 2, and then the rest is common area.
Right.
So you're just talking along where the small lots are.
Also, again, I have not been privy to all the changes that have been made. Are we going to be able to see that at some point?
Right. There's none of the changes if the developer agrees to some of these.
One of my concerns, in the December meeting, the comments that were made about the HOA and how it was gonna operate and what was gonna be expected, I'm assuming none of that has changed, but I don't know. Will be separate still,
It's separate.
and they will share, expense with the front entrance maintenance. None of that has changed.
I know that has not changed.
And again, my final comment, I continue to be very concerned, all of us in Riverview Estates, which is a lot of people, as Bob pointed out. We have one way in and out of our homes, and it's that riverfront. I would really like to see this designed in mind to keep as much of this traffic off of riverfront. There's 2 other streets available to funnel it into.
Entrances.
Yeah.
And, and so.
But a lot of the density is still gonna dump on the riverfront by this design.
Sections, and I think that's how they planned it, is that people, if you look on the far left-hand side, that the access off of 37. So those people are gonna access from there and exit from there.
I'm not as concerned about that one. I'm concerned about the east.
Yeah, so. I think that's why they put those entrances where they did.
So
And that was that. So, you're
it'll happen.
Will have that.
I think that's all I was gonna say. Thank you.
Chris Conley, 3421 Falling River Drive. I try and talk in bullet points. That's just the way I think, but sure the city's aware, but we've had some issues with the development that's already going on in the back. Just with some safety issues on brush piles and then also I think the water lines, right? So just to make sure everyone's aware. As far as utilities, I'm still concerned with the hydraulic analysis, the traffic analysis. I know it's done, but I'm still very concerned with it. The police and firefighters that are going to support this. There's a lot of people that are getting added to this community, and just by the nature of the design, the crime that we're going to have is, I believe, very different than what we have today. I have 2 young boys. We live right next to Tammy. We're about to have a 3rd boy. So safety to me is important. I still don't know why the multifamily housing is kind of out by itself over there. I'd like to see that changed. I do think in the last meeting we said 6 per building, per structure. That was what was coming on at the very end. I don't know if that's changed. Did that change? Well, it's 12 now.
Well,
So I think at the end of the last meeting, if you look it up, it was stated that they would at least go to 6. So that's different than what we talked about. There's also the resident that asked if we could get updates from the meeting. I am disappointed that we're getting them so late in the game. I think on item 13, one of the arguments for approval was it matches the pattern and the character of what's existing in the neighborhood. This absolutely does not. I think we've stated that a couple of times, but as far as approval goes, that was used before by the city when talking about a development and a change. This doesn't match pattern or character. Quality of life, the next thing, I think we've talked about it a lot, but the vision that everyone was sold has not been upheld here. And then the HOA is non-existent. There's not an HOA for me. There's no meetings, there's no interaction. You guys were working on this for a year. Known about it since November. We had a meeting in December to talk about it, and there's been no, and even in the meeting in December, we said the HOA is not fixed. We called out the HOA. There has still been no progress to reach out to residents and say anything to work on the design or even work on, hey, we realize we're just missing the point with the existing community. Nothing. To me, we're very opposed. This is very different than what we wanted just moving into Newcastle. We love the neighborhood. We love our neighbors. And it's really sad to see this type of development being proposed. I see the changes. I see the time spent, but it's not where we need it. It needs work.
I'm Brianna Roach. I also live at 3651 Oxbow. I'm very mathematical, so a lot of my issues are with numbers. There's 41.5 acres of developed lots out of the 77 total acres, because a lot of that is that section that Daniel said can't be built on. 17% of that is multifamily. And within those multifamily, we don't know how many. They say 12 per unit. That's not 12 per lot. So when they say there's 9 multifamily lots, we really have no idea how many units are going to be in those multifamily lots. So whenever there's a calculation that says the density in this neighborhood is 3.3 lots per acre, 9 of those lots take up 17% of the space. So it really comes out to, their original estimate was over 390 units that they gave us in our neighborhood meeting. That is over 9.3 units per acre of the developed space. So when they say this is under the density of a neighborhood in Newcastle, because it's under 4, that's a really misleading calculation. There's also the commercial and residential issues. We are very thankful not to have apartments in our backyard. However, the single family homes can be 3 stories high and 55 feet. So we got rid of the apartments, but now because the roadways have gotten wider, which is great, the lots have gotten smaller. They actually increased the number of lots from the original PUD to this one. So the lots got smaller. So now everybody's only going to be able to go up because that's all they're going to be able to do to get square footage for their families. So we will have 3-story, 55-foot tall single family homes squeezed in because the lots sizes, 200 of the lots are 5,000 square feet or smaller. So the approval of being able to reduce the lot size is going to be maximized as many as they can squeeze in there. And a lot of those are under 4,000 square feet, which a lot of our homes have just the concrete for our home, including my porch, my garage, not including my driveway, is over 3,800 square feet. So these lots are going to be the size of the concrete of our house, which brings into some concern of how they're really increasing the number of parking spots on the lots because they've gotten smaller. I don't know how many of these streets have the off-road side parking. I don't know if there's like a highlighted map that'll show how many streets will actually be lined with cars, even though they'll be set back from the 24-foot driving area. But that's a lot of cars coming in and out and parallel parking on the street. So I think those are my main concerns. The only other one is the reduced lot size, allowing room for utilities. Also the precedent that it sets in the community for other building PUD developments like this, and the impact that it has on our current resources and schooling.
Bivens, 3550 Rising River Road. I just want to echo some of the sentiments that my neighbors have talked about. I too am in complete disagreement with the way this is going. It does not match our neighborhood, and I just don't like it at all. As kind of some other people stated, the common area that they outline as being the big green space, that's not Boston Commons. It's not any great park. It's a drainage field for the pond that's up against the highway. Kids aren't going to be able to play there. It's just a space they can build on, and like she said, it's highly inflating the ratio of units per acre. So definitely take that into consideration. Another thing that I want to bring up is drainage issues. I know it's been talked about a little bit. I have severe drainage issues in my yard. My yard gets drained by over a quarter of our existing neighborhood. There's drainage easements that come from 2 different directions in my backyard. Basically everything from east of the water tower and south of the water tower drains through my yard. I have a massive pit in my backyard that's eroding year over year. It's about 20 feet wide at the present time. The drainage easements that are going into that are also eroding further and further every year. Okay. Some of it's tin horned. I have a tin horn that crosses to my property from under the road. It's half full of sediment because it wasn't designed well. The grade shooting down is not appropriate at all. So my neighbors uphill from me also have drainage issues. And what I see here is a concrete jungle. There's no grass except for those big common areas. So all that water has to go somewhere, and it's going to cause a lot of drainage issues. They talk about there's parking everywhere, which eliminates grass. Nothing on that whole section where all these lots are is going to be able to absorb water. It's all going to run off. More water is going to come on my neighborhood, my side of the road, and other places, and it's going to cause other issues outside of this plat. Also, another thing I want to bring up, at the last meeting where this was on the agenda, we had probably 40 people here the last time from our neighborhood that were all here to oppose this. We don't have quite as many this time because people are tired of it. I don't know how many people need to wait for a 3-hour meeting, but there's still probably 20 of us here that have sat here and are deeply opposed to this. But at that last meeting where this was on the agenda, y'all heard the initial plat of this as well as section 3. Section 3 got approved. Not a single one of us got up and made one comment about how section 3 was developed because it matches our neighborhood. Okay? We're fine with that. Okay? We'd be fine with more of that in the front. We know there's going to be commercial. It's zone commercial. We understood that. We were all told that when we were moving in. This is not what we were told we were moving into. Like the other people, we live in higher end homes. Most of our homes are probably over $500,000. We don't want to drive through somewhere that looks like a city epicenter like this with commercial buildings that we don't know what's going to be involved in. Is it going to be a pot shop or who knows what else when they can't fill the real estate? We don't want it there. The last thing I want to say is it'd be one thing if they were asking for just 1 or 2 variances here. But I really would like to know how many variances are being asked for this project. If it were 1 or 2, sure. It seems like there's a whole heck of a lot of variances that they're having to try to ram through this to get this built. To me, that should be a big red flag that this shouldn't happen the way this is happening. Thank you.
Live at 2096 Northwest 34th Street. And I own 2126 Northwest 34th Street. So I back up to the commercial area. So I'm here. And I appreciate your comments about the 2-story buildings looking into my backyard. I don't want to look at that building, even if they can't see me. I don't want to see that there. And Tammy pointed out that the trees that they might plant there probably couldn't survive. Well, I've been proactive and have planted trees along the south side of my property. Thousands of dollars on landscaping that's full sun landscaping because that's what's back there. Nothing to provide shade other than the trees that I've spent money to plant. So now I can see that that's potentially wasted if there's shade from a 2-story building on my current landscaping. I feel like my home value will decrease. So if you guys were interested in buying a home in Riverview Estates, would you want one of those lots that I own? Or would you want to be further away from that development? And if you were wanting to buy a house, would you want this development in your backyard? I think the traffic will be a nightmare getting in and out of there. And if you can help this proposal, that's all.
There one thing, can you folks drive through and see where we live and know what we're talking about before we add all this to the front? I mean, most of us wouldn't have bought there if that was there first.
The addition.
clarity on if it's 6 or 12?
Sorry?
Do we get clarity on if it's 6 or 12 for building? Changed it in the last meeting, so we could, I don't know if we have a review or recording of the last meeting, but I'd like to go. That was agreed. I would put it down, like, you can see the date.
Yeah, per the current application, the original application, which I just have all the notes from our meetings, it was 12 units an acre based off the last.
At the end of the meeting, I think it's 8.1 multifamily, something like that. You said you would go down to 6 for one structure. To get misleading.
I guess while we're clarifying things, just want to make some clarifications. So density, when you calculate density, you have to include the entire property because open space does count towards the property that is owned. So the calculations are correct on the sheet here, which you do count the open space, common area, right of way, and everything. You don't take out all the common area and right of way, you just take the developable land and density. That's not how it typically works. Drainage, this whole property drains south, so you will never get drainage from Riverview Villages. Variances are needed because the code that Newcastle has established for your standard neighborhood, your large lot residential neighborhoods. And to do a concept like this, which is a new urbanism concept, it creates community, creates, different type of unit products and commercial all in one. You will never meet any code without doing a PUD. Doesn't matter where you go, unless there's Edmond, Oklahoma City. There's nothing that meets this. So when all these are going in and the cities going, there's one in Newcastle City, there's the Wheeler District, there's Soleil. They have to create these so that you can meet these variance standards because you just won't meet it based on your standard like neighborhoods. So that's why we have the variances, and we went through and made sure that all those were codified so we knew what we were changing. And lot we had to take out because we negotiated that. So, and just another thing on the, just clarify, no parking on Riverfront Drive, and then there will be no parking on the street. There will be separate parking stalls adjacent to the road, so you will never impede the 24 feet. Yep. And those will. Janae, if you have access to your email, can you pull up the image I just sent you of it's of Seaside. I should have brought that image, but you have the ability to show that. You can see the concept of the roadway and the parking adjacent to the structures close to the road. And you've not, though. I can show them on phone.
You have an iPhone.
What's that?
You have an iPhone.
Yes.
Okay, you could AirPlay.
Can I share it? I can make your
Yep.
Click on that image. So this is Seaside in Florida, which is this new urbanism concept. And this roadway is 20 feet, which we originally planned, but we widened it to 24. But you can see the roadway, we're going to actually have a porch. You can see this is the concept. You have buildings close to the street, you still have room for parking, and then also in addition to this, we're putting a sidewalk on one side. And we have a wider section. We have 45 feet between lot 5 and lot 9. So it'll be a wide, at least 10 feet, maybe 15. Yeah, because we've got 45 feet to work with, and they've probably got 30. Now, 20 feet, 8 and 8. It's probably there may be 35 feet. So we probably had 10 feet wider to work with sidewalk on one side, parking. That is the concept that this is based on. Now, of course, the commercial areas are going to be the smaller little town center type commercial, which in the packet you look at that. But the typical streets, this is basically what you're looking for.
Imagine kids starting out from all of us trying to get to 37. Just scary.
This will not be able to be drive.
Yeah, in Riverview is the right of way is, Riverfront Drive, right of way, I think it's 60 feet. So, and then from there, we have a 25-foot setback. The side. I don't know. Now, it's supposed to be 60 feet and then another 25 feet. So between houses on the riverfront, we have 110 feet. And then one sidewalk on one side. It's still, we're not going to put curb and gutters. They look exact same. It would just have that same bar edge, and every time there's a road that connects to it, we have to do a culvert. So it'll still look rural coming in, but once you take a lot right or left, then it's going to be this. So there is separation in that window coming into the state. It's going to look more rural, like entry going up. So sorry, I should have brought this. Thank you for reminding me. I should have brought.
These recorded.
Can't ask a question of somebody just said.
Not from the audience, you can't speak to the presenter.
Can I walk up?
Yeah, if the commissioning chair says that you can ask another question, but permit purposes, of the meeting. Hard to make minutes like that.
Next. Joe.
I have a comment for the gallery. I hope that y'all come to the city council meeting. Just before tax day.
Thompson. Yeah.
First motion that we just did was denied, because we had three opposed. You're wanting to set up with no, I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Okay, well, before,
Yes, I understand that.
here we're working on a preliminary plat.
Yeah. Well, I'd really like to see the city council have an opinion, one way or the other, on the PUD before we go to the preliminary plan.
issues before.
Yep.
Any discussion? Possible action on setting date for next session meeting.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I missed it.
You've been through the whole party, we can't not to let you talk. Oh, okay.
I was for 18, right? Right.